Moving on to Inoka, you get the gift of Sri Lankan talent, you unwrap it. What worries you the most or surprises you the most?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here first. And I think we are known, Sri Lankans are known for our incredible talent. We are known to be incredibly resilient. We've just taken the beating for ever so long, but we still stand strong with a smile. We are one of amongst the top 100 for language capability in English. We are one of the sought after destinations for outsourcing. What surprises me is that this talent is everywhere in this country, in any part of it. It's just that we may see only a few of them, but actually when I've started getting exposed to people in the remotest corners, and what surprises is it's absolutely incredible talent. What's worrying me is where are they when we want them? How do we kind of uplift them and bring them forward from the most remotest parts to the central or more urban locations where businesses thrive? Why are they leaving the country? What can we do to hold them back? And that worries me, because what is that generation that's left for us?
Great. Move on to Inoka. So this question goes out to two key trends that the world is talking about these days, burnout and disengagement. But the question comes to in a form of in organizations undergoing rapid digital change, like the one you are in now, changes every day, right? And experiencing frequent disruptions also. How do you ensure that employees not only adapt to new technologies, they've got to learn everything, new things every day, they've got to keep changing. What the workplace that they saw yesterday would not be the workplace they would be walking into today. So a lot of rapid changes happening. How do you actually make sure that people thrive on digital enabled roles by keeping up to speed, and also by making sure that they don't experience burnout or disengagement? I think that's important.
Thank you for the question. I love it. I think the words transformation, AI, disruption are very common. It's just day to day. We hear it from morning till night. Organizations just use these as part of their daily language, right? But in that process, what I have seen is today, just to take a step back, if you look at AI is just such a big buzzword. And it has become $1 trillion industry, literally overnight. But how are we using that, right? And we are talking a lot about how we adopt technology. How do we adopt the tool? But very often we forget, or many organizations in that process, because of course the organizational mandate is to adopt the technology. And in that process, sometimes the human experience, falls behind. And we tend to, not really call that out as part of the process of adoption or process of change management. And I think in how I see it is, I feel that there are maybe 3 key things that we can think about. One is, when it comes to adopting technology, the human is at the core. You can't undermine the value of who's, actually at forefront or actually executing. What's the heartbeat and the gut feel behind all of this, right? And I think for me, giving that clarity becomes really important. I'm a strong believer of communication. Communicate, communicate, and communicate, right? And if people know what they're using is, what the product, what is it, and why it's being used, then a lot of these confusions, frustrations, change, resistance goes away. And telling that is not a town hall. It's a process, again, from the thought, from almost the point of where the seed for technology was sown, that communication needs to begin to say, here is why we are doing this. Here is what we are going to do about this. And the clarity of that thought helps people to understand, okay, this is what's going to come out of it. Because very often what happens is, and I have seen this over many years now through the many organizations and industries I've been in, transformation in technology is not anything new. It has happened in so many different ways. It's just that today AI is playing a big role where we need it day in, day out. Previously, it was someone using technology that was using applications, right? But today, it's a part of our lives. And in that, when we know the why, then the what becomes easy and the how becomes easy, right? So for people to understand, a lot of the frustration, the burnout is we always refer, or very often refer to burnout as something where we work overtime or extended hours or the lack of work-life balance. But burnout also comes as a result of a lack of clarity.
That is so true. I can't agree more, because the general misconception is that you're worn out, but burnout is something different.
Absolutely. So there is a lot about, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm expected to do. This technology is coming in and it's supposed to make my life easier, but then what happens to me, right? So I think telling people why we are doing this becomes a big part of change adoption. Second, I would say, is how do we look at capability? We talk a lot about, yes, this technology is going to make life easier. So when it becomes easier, then what happens to me? I was already doing it, right? But then that means there is room for me to reskill, upskill, cross-skill, to acquire a new set of capacities, and I can be redeployed. I have an example. Recently, we had a large healthcare service provider who's one of our clients. They are a Fortune 500 company in the US. They were interested in the AI, Gen AI applications that we produce. And they were talking about agentic AI used at call centers. So the first thought that comes is, okay, these are going to replace call center agents or customer service agents that we have in human form, right? But when we understood what are they trying to do, what they're trying to do is when a call comes in from a patient, what the human agent does is go refer up the patient's records in a system and try to go back into history. But what now, that time is saved because your AI agents are doing it, and the human customer care person has more time to engage with the patient. And I think we heard this earlier, we leave room for more conversation. So how do we upskill, reskill people to do their job differently? It's the same with recruitment. Today, I think Ross spoke about CV screening. Right? Today, we are looking at it in applications. We have many applications that we use, which says, okay, here is the gap between your job description and the candidate. It's 70%, 10%. And then we know, okay, this is what an organization needs to map. So then what's the role of the recruiter? What's the role of the talent person, the trainer? Right? So for me, the second is how do we give confidence to people through reskilling and upskilling? And I would say the third element, which I keep talking about, is how do we genuinely care? And I think in organizations today, we speak a lot about well-being and wellness, which has become, again, a hot topic post-COVID. I think it took a little bit of a break. It's back again. But I think how do we genuinely show compassion? How do we genuinely show kindness? And how do we care for people? Because it's, again, not about, hey, you work late, or I want you to spend extra hours. But it's just a matter of asking, how are you doing today? Right. So I think if all of these come together deliberately by design of a process that we put in place, then employees become very clear. They know what's there. You're upfront, whether it meets your expectations or not, you have a conversation about it. And you leave room for opportunity to engage. And then that whole question of burnout and frustration, I don't think it'll ever eliminate. It's a human tendency, but it can be mitigated.
Inoka, I'd like to move on to you with the next question, which is about AI and automation, which is increasingly a part of the workflow. You did speak about this in your previous answer, I know, but this one is, what strategies can HR leaders employ to balance efficiency gains and human-centric talent management, particularly in upskilling and redeployment, something that we spoke of?
Thank you again, a very relevant question, I think. So when we talk about automation and sort of efficiencies, we look at essentially about rewriting workflows. That's essentially at the bottom line, that's what happens, right? But you can never rewrite the value of a human being at the end of it. So how I see this is, a lot of the time, efficiency is translated into cost cutting or headcount reductions or budget cuts. But what if we look at it from a different perspective? This is, again, something I've been thinking about. When I've been seeing this, you say, okay, AI is coming and we are going to lose jobs. So then what happens, right? But then how do we use that opportunity to increase capacity, be it individuals, be it an organization? And when this comes in, again, how do we, as organizations plan for this change, when they're looking at efficiencies, automation brings in certain things, robotics comes in, AI comes in now, the time you spend drafting letters has reduced. The time you spend executing a workflow now, which has taken days, takes milliseconds right now. What do you do with that time? What do you do with that previous set of skills? So in terms of HR, if we look at our own teams, if I look at my own teams, the time they spent on building reports or PowerPoint slides or, sharing information with their teams, now there's technology to take up or crunch the time used for all of that. What do you do with that extra time? So how I see it is, this is something I always tell my teams as well. How are you reskilling in your role? So recently somebody shared this snippet from a grade 7 book which talks about human resources. I was very flattered that somebody at grade 7 is learning about human resources. But it lists down about 8 things from hiring, performance management, leave to firing. So beyond that, I think HR has significantly evolved to contribute to a business. So I see capacity development in 2 aspects. How do we I mentioned this previously, upskill, reskill, cross-skill in different ways. How do we do that to our people? Because when you look at the demand of an organization or how the external environment and an organization evolves, it evolves at a blink. But our curriculums don't evolve that fast. Our learning initiatives don't evolve that fast. But how can we bridge the 2 in some way to help people get used to this new environment and have a new set of skills which can be now deployed into something else? This was that same customer service example I took before. Second is, can that capacity also be put in to an organizational benefit? Can we look at new lines of business? Can we look at re-strategizing how we work? If you look at the possibilities versus, okay, we are creating efficiencies to reduce time, versus if we shift that language to say we are creating efficiencies to build capacity, I think the whole paradigm also shifts. Right? The second aspect is we still talk a lot about roles. So I'm coming from tech right now, I'll say we talk about a software engineer. But today, and we say the software engineer needs to have Java, React, Node, a full stack capability, all of that. Do we look at skills? So today, I think when we try to build in on this hyper-automated or hyper-tech world, skills really matter. Because to what everyone has been saying, how does an individual skill set evolve? How do I represent myself at work? How do I face a client? How do I go out there into the market? How do I get to know my customer and consumer? That itself becomes a different set of skills. If you look at the top 10 skills the World Economic Forum cites for 2030, 7 out of the 10 are human skills. And you can't underestimate the value of emotional intelligence in all of that. So in that whole process, yes, automation has its importance. Efficiency is very important at the rate we work. But it's also how do we build capacity, how do we rebuild skill? And that's where the opportunity marries into each other.